Hello everyone, welcome to today's session on adapting to the new business as usual. For those that may not have done a Zoom meeting, you can raise a question at any time through the Q&A, and if you've got any issues, jump into the chat area and we'll make sure that they get sorted out straight away. My name is Chris East. For those that don't know me, Director and Principal here at East Partners. And we've been running these sessions each month over the last few months, talking about topical issues, particularly during this very difficult year that we're all facing. I like to put in a thought for the day, and today's is that it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent, but the one that's most adaptable to change. And I'm sure that we can all relate to this in the issues that we're all facing in our businesses that have been thrown at us during the course of this COVID period. What do we want to chat about today? Let's look at some lessons from the lockdown, or lockdowns as it's been for some. Let's have a look at choosing to change. Change is one of the hardest things that any of us can face. And in some cases we have no choice, but let's change that thought around and say, let's look at what we need to do in choosing to change. The fundamentals of adapting your business to the new business environment. Let's leave no stone unturned as we go through the change process. Make sure that we consider all the options that we have available to us. And we need to pull all that together into a practical, workable, cohesive plan. The steps that you can take to make all that happen, the support that you have available, and there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So the new business as usual. Let's put some context first of all around what we mean by the new business as usual. Before COVID and the lockdown periods, we had the old business as usual, if I can put that in inverted commas. When the crisis unfolded and most countries and many businesses went into lockdown and entered business unusual, many businesses went into, I guess, some sort of hibernation, in some cases complete hibernation. They weren't able to function at all. In other cases, businesses were able to function with limited capacity. In either way, this was, I guess, what we'd call the business continuity phase. And for those of you on the line who attended our business continuity webinar earlier in the year, you'll understand what I mean by that. Then there was the phase of the easing of some lockdown restrictions, and businesses entered into what we call the business recovery phase. And at this point, business unusual continues as many people are still restricted in their movements. It's a time really for reinventing how we operate our businesses. And as the restrictions continue to ease, we are not yet out of business unusual. Customers are still pretty wary of travel. They may be reluctant to spend money, or may have suffered severely themselves during the lockdown with job losses or loss of income and so forth. At some point in the future, maybe 6, maybe 12 months, maybe longer, we'll enter the new business as usual phase. In some cases, it might already be happening in some businesses. In any case, we need to plan for this now. And as the previous slide just showed, we need to be able to adapt so that we can survive. So what are some of the lessons, or the essential lessons from the lockdown? We've all had unique lessons from this period, and many businesses have been innovating, re-engineering, adapting, and widening their lanes to find viability in strange times. We've adapted ourselves by running these webinars for our clients, for you on the line, and delivering many meetings online through the Zoom platform. We've also re-engineered the way we operate to cope with remote working. We've widened our lanes by adding new services, such as helping clients with business recovery planning, which is, I guess it's a little bit like business planning on steroids. insofar that it's aimed really to help SMEs recover in a quick period as possible from the COVID crisis and establish their new business as usual, whatever that may look like. And we've seen lots of examples of how clients have innovated or re-engineered, adapted, or widened their lanes. Other lessons from the lockdown period. I guess when forced upon us, change can happen fast. You know, if we have no choice, we have to do something. Ordinarily, if change is nice to do or maybe has some sort of voluntary component about it, we'll look to avoid it or maybe to defer it. But when it's forced on us, we have to take action. So in that case, change can happen really quick, and I'm sure you can relate to that. And one of those has been working from home, which for some it's been terrific, and for others it's been an absolute nightmare. And both from the perspective of the business and for the team members. I'm sure that some of you on the line now have been working at home in an environment where you've had your spouse and kids at home at the same time, all trying to function together insofar as kids needing to continue to do schoolwork, you trying to do your work, your spouse doing the same, and all trying to do this without getting under each other's feet and driving each other crazy. It's been an enormous challenge. Technology as always can be your friend, and that was just as relevant pre-COVID as it is now. And it'll be your friend if you're agile. So it's taking that glass half full approach, is looking for opportunity. Converse to that is that if you're slow to adopt, technology can be your enemy. It can be something which works against you, or maybe you're working against it. And above all, and I think this is always appropriate, and for those of you out there that work with us as clients, you know that my view is that it's always a good idea to have a war chest of cash. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. And the issues that have thrown up during this year have clearly demonstrated the importance of having a cash barrier, or as I've put there, a cash war chest. So we need to change and adapt, but is that enough? Think about the things you've changed as a result of the lockdown. Were some of these changes things you've considered previously, but never quite got around to? So perhaps, as I had on that previous slide, change was maybe forced on you. Or did you make some changes and perhaps then reverted back to the old ways of doing things? You dipped the toe in the water and found, oh, I'm not too sure if I actually want to go down that path. And you end up going back to the comfort of the old ways of doing things. As I said earlier, change is not easy, but it's absolutely essential in the current environment. I'll share with you now some mindsets. There's 4 mindsets that will help make change easier for you in the future. And for those of you that have done some of these webinars with us previously, you know what I mean when I talk about the Orbed model, which is essentially talking about above the line or below the line thinking. In times of crisis, we have 2 choices about how we can respond, how we can act. We can either act below the line or above the line, as I just said. Below the line actions would go something along these lines. You blame someone else for bringing the virus to our country. You make excuses why there's nothing we can do about it, or you go into denial that there's even an issue, and we do so by putting ourselves and our team and our business at great risk. Or we can act above the line, which is taking ownership that we can and we must do something to protect ourselves and our business. And in some cases, that means closing business, and that's an enormously difficult decision for business owners to make. But they're taking ownership over that decision. Recognise that we are accountable to our team and to our customers at their greatest time of need, and taking responsibility for ourselves in protecting ourselves, protecting our team, our customers, and our business from these and during these difficult times. The fundamental mindset here is that we must have a choice, and we must make that choice and not play the victim and not take the victim mindset during these times. So when we talk from the above the line, we're talking from a position of I. It's being the adult, it's taking control. We see it, we do it, we own it. We're making active choices. Whereas below the line thinking, we're speaking from the you. In some ways, it's being childlike. Yeah, look, it's natural to feel out of control, but it's looking then to ignore, to blame, to make excuses. It's not my job. It's not my problem. Not taking that initiative and seeking to justify rather than looking to make active choices. So then we look at the 5 A's of change. And essentially here we're talking about awareness, acceptance, action, accountability, and acknowledgement. The first step is to be aware of what needs to change, why it needs to change, and what will happen if things don't change. So it's having that awareness. The next step is to accept that you must change. It's likely that the COVID crisis that raised your awareness and accepted that change is necessary. The third step is to take action. Without action, nothing can change, and your business will struggle to recover, and just nothing happens without action. Documenting what you're doing or going to do as part of your recovery plan is the first step towards taking action. Next, we take accountability. Having someone independent holding you to account will ensure that you take action and the required action so that you can achieve the change that's needed. And finally, and importantly, is the need to reinforce change by acknowledging and celebrating success, no matter how great or small that success is. It's so easy just to continue to plow on with the taking action component and not stepping back and acknowledging the steps that you've taken. In some ways, it's like pulling over to the side of the road and just looking at the journey that you've taken, acknowledging what's worked and what hasn't, and then continuing to plow down the road of change so that your business will continue to be or to have that success that you're looking for. So now I want to talk about what I've entitled Atomic Habits. And the Atomic Habit Mindset is based on the book by James Clear. If you haven't read it, it's certainly worth taking a look at. In summary, outcome-based habits are less likely to be successful if we're not recognizing the need to change our identity. These habits will either not stick as we revert to our old identity, or we'll give up those habits once we reach the outcome. Instead of focusing on the outcome, if we focus on who we need to be, that is our identity or our business's identity, and how this needs to change, we form habits consistent with that identity. The outcomes will flow more naturally if we simply live into our identity. So we make it part of us. And then we look at the rubber band model. This is something a little different. But the rubber band model comes from the decision book, 50 Models of Strategic Thinking by Mikhail Krogris. When making a decision between two options, imagine there are 2 rubber bands around you, one holding you and one pulling you. Both rubber bands are equally important because one represents careful consideration, that is doing things step by step with great process and identifying and mitigating risks, with the other rubber band representing the need for change, progression, and finding better ways to reach your goals. So put simply, by analysing what's holding you and what's pulling you, the result will be a carefully considered way forward. The rubber band model is also useful if 2 business owners have different views on what change looks like. So what do we mean? One may be wanting to do or to dot the I's and cross the T's. manage the risks, create robust processes and so forth. The other might want to move forward to capture new opportunities for innovation, adapting, re-engineering, but may not have considered all the risks. So essentially this model helps to pull these divergent and important viewpoints together to find consensus as to the best way forward. Maybe a little bit like a yin and yang type scenario. It's looking at the competing forces and saying, well, rather than rushing down the road and taking action without giving careful consideration, you could end up in trouble. Conversely, if you end up doing too much analysis, well, it's paralysis by analysis and nothing happens. So it's trying to get those in balance. So now that we know what adaptation is, as I said before, we have innovation, re-engineering, reinvention, or widening our lane. And we have 4 powerful mindsets to help us with change, being the Orbed model, the 5 A's of change, the atomic habits, and the rubber band model. What are the fundamentals we need to have in place to adapt our business? Well, first up, and as I've got on the slide here, we need to take a team approach, because it's highly likely that your team will have many ideas as to how to help improve the business. So you must involve them. I know myself and many business owners have this because they can become blinkered. They're so attached to their business and their thinking can become, in some ways, a little bit tunnel vision. So it's super important to bring your team in and get their views, get their opinions, get their thoughts, tap into their thinking. So after you've done that, make a plan. And during the lockdown, it's likely you thought of many ideas for how to adapt. I know I certainly did, and we certainly did as a team. If there's more than one owner of your business, there's a risk that you'll have divergent ideas. And look, that's okay. Making a plan helps to get some alignment and clarity in your new business. And that plan might be that if your ideas are greatly divergent, maybe it's time for a business restructure. Maybe this idea has been, or this issue has been bubbling away in the background for a while. The events of this year and during lockdowns has perhaps brought that to the fore. Maybe that means you go your own ways. And as I said, that's okay. Make a plan around that. Third on the list is do a budget and have a business budget. And I know when I talk to clients, with clients on the line, I know you've heard me say this, and I know eyes glaze over because mine glaze over too, because goodness me, it can be a little bit dull. But a revised personal budget with trim costs helps reduce the cash flow strain on your business. A revised business budget will give you more certainty and control, such as through establishing your minimum viable weekly sales and the number of sales you need to make to survive during this crisis. Now, budgets don't have to be enormous documents with all sorts of calculations and super analysis. As I said before, paralysis by analysis does not lead to any change, but you need to have an idea around where is your money coming from and where is it going. Next, we need to do a complete risk analysis, and a risk analysis is best practice for all businesses, but even more important so now. An inability to pay debts as they fall due or having poor reporting systems are examples of the risks your business may be facing. Next up, you want to be looking at doing some pre-work. And what does that mean? Pre-work prior to a planning meeting ensures your meeting is not just one about discovery. In other words, don't waste your time catching up on information in the meeting that could have been done as pre-work. We'll talk more about pre-work shortly as it relates to the business recovery plan. Now, this one I think is super important, and that's having independent accountability. Accountability ensures that you get things done. We're all super busy, and at times the important things that aren't urgent, like planning, just don't get done. Independent accountability also gives you the ability to combine your expertise with someone else's so you come up with an even better plan. Now, sometimes I get asked, and I've had this in a previous webinar, what if I have my spouse to keep me accountable? And some things in life, I know in my life, my wife keeps me accountable to some things, but when it comes to business, it's very easy for a spouse to not be the best accountability partner because you're balancing a number of different hats. You're balancing the personal or private life aspect of things with business related matters, and oftentimes your spouse won't fully understand the issues that are being faced, or it's just simply easier to say, I'll do it tomorrow, and the spouse says, yeah, okay. So having someone independent to help you stay on the path, I think is really, really important. Working on work versus working in your business. For those of you who have read Michael Gerber and his E-Myth, you'll know absolutely what's being talked about here. But if you haven't, look, the most important aspect of planning is to understand the difference between governance and management. And governance is often referred to as working on the business, whereas management is working in. The governance role is accountable to the shareholders, and the company and the directors must set a vision and determine the strategies to get there. The management role is accountable to the board of directors to implement those strategies and to achieve the vision. So that might all sound all very corporate speak. And look, in reality, it is, because that's what you'll find that happens in large businesses. Let's strip that right back down to the small business where it might be one person and maybe no employees, or maybe one or two employees. Ultimately, though, it still comes down to that business owner needing to wear multiple hats. At times, they are going to be looking at the governance aspect, is to making sure that the strategic direction of the business is clear, that they understand and have clarity around their purpose, and so on. Whereas managing is then looking at the daily deliverables that have to be done, which is the service delivery, the product development. It's making sure operations are happening correctly. It's the marketing, it's the sales, the finance, the admin, the IT, the HR, all of the things which are, which when they come together, implement the strategies to deliver the purpose and achieve the vision that the business owner has set out. So when we talk about something like business recovery planning or business planning in general, it's a combination of working on your business and in your business, as you need to get right down into the operational areas of the business to find the savings, the efficiencies, the adaptations and the improvements to then work your plan towards the new business as usual. And for some of you, you may have seen this before. In my view, there's 10 departments in every business. And in a lot of ways, this is reflective of the 10 hats mindset, which effectively is talking about no matter what size small business owners need to wear more or less 10 hats, as has been shown on this diagram here. As an example, you may have discovered that customers are slower to pay you now. The risk here is that you may not be able to pay your debts as they fall due, so your finance department's goal might be to reduce your debtor days or the days it takes for your customers to pay you. And let's say that that goal might be to reduce that amount by 10 days, and in doing so, that will free up about 15,000 of cash. The actions you need to take might include a review of your terms of trade, better reporting of your debtors, and maybe even the contracting in of an external credit controller. That's the sort of analysis that you then that you would need to apply within each of these departments to then work out what change is required as part of your business recovery plan or your future business planning into the, as I said before, the new business as usual. So leave no stone unturned. What do I mean by that? Unlike a business plan, which is generally more strategic and high level, in times of crisis, you need to be looking at all aspects of your business. So while you'll be working on your business when completing your plan, you need to get right down into the trenches and find opportunities for improvements or for savings, or in other words, leave no stone unturned. So what are maybe some of the stones that we can look under? I'll give an example of what I mean by leaving no stone unturned in relation to, let's say, pre-work that might be required when doing a business recovery plan. So here we look at a series of questions that we would generally ask when doing a business recovery plan about what are the sorts of things that would be needed in terms of, say, the development of a new product or service. Have there been new products or new services that have been developed during the crisis, and how have customers responded to your innovation? You can read these for yourselves. You might have looked to be discontinuing an existing product line or a service line. What were the reasons behind that? Was that a short-term thing, or was that maybe a longer-term trend that's really been forced on you as a result of the COVID period? Are there other ideas that you have for pivoting your business? New areas to move into, new opportunities to explore? When we look at issues or questions and matters around marketing, these are the sorts of questions that we would look to explore. And I'll let you take a moment to read through those. But essentially what it is doing is to be putting these issues front and center and looking for considered responses, taking that step back from the working in the business, if you like, being at that management phase, and just saying, well, let's actually look at the governance, the reasons, our vision, our purpose for existing, and so forth, and then looking at these matters in under our operational areas or our management and saying, are these areas, are the actions that we're taking congruent and reflective of what we're wanting to achieve? Another important area as part of that process that we do is to consider your supply chain. Now, it's applicable in both product-based businesses and in service businesses. What are the key suppliers that you have to your business? Are there changes that have had to have been made or may need to be made in terms of purchasing decisions? Certainly for product-based businesses, in some cases it's been difficult to get product where you've been reliant on getting product from offshore. Supply chains have been majorly disrupted. So are there contingency plans for alternate supply? In that particular case, not only for product-based businesses, but service businesses. If you have key contractors or other key knowledge providers that may not be able to be physically present due to say lockdown, what plans do you have in place to ensure that your ability to continue to service your client base or customer base is not disrupted? So there are a series of the types of questions we would look at as part of a pre-work exercise when looking to do a business continuity plan. So let's pull all these concepts together into a cohesive plan. A cohesive plan, essentially what that looks like is your personal budget, as I mentioned before. It's looking at the risk register, which essentially is what are the key risks, threats, challenges to your business. It's bringing in the business recovery plan. It's bringing in the business forecast, maybe an updated organisation chart, primarily if you have people or a team of people. And it's certainly important if you're looking to apply for finance is bringing in a finance application to help continue the funding for your business. So the outcomes of a completed plan, firstly, it gives certainty and alignment around how to adapt your business to survive and to thrive in the long term. Secondly, and super importantly, it's reduced cash flow strain on your business. And the reason for that, or to achieve the reduced strain, is that by going through a review of personal spending and maybe making adjustments or trimming where possible, you've then got clarity around where the cash is actually going. And speaking of clarity, the third point is it gives you clarity around things such as minimum viable weekly sales, or the number of key projects you may need to deliver over a period of time. I like to work in 90-day timeframes or 3-month timeframes, so that it's long enough to be to provide a good opportunity to plan, but short enough not to become too far into the future and unrealistic. Well, not so much unrealistic, but you lose touch with the need to take action now. So the potential to defer activity until later is heightened when it becomes a longer time frame. Fourthly, it gives a complete package to share with your financiers. By having all of those things pulled together, it shows that you're on top of your game. You know what you're doing, you're in control of your business, and it's more likely that the financier will look to engage with you to make sure that you have the right facilities in place for your business to continue to function, and as I said earlier, to thrive in the long term. And finally, and probably arguably most importantly, I guess, is it gives you peace of mind, the ability to sleep at night knowing that you've got a plan in place. So rather than having things running through your head, not being able to get a good night's sleep because your brain is on overdrive, is to get this stuff documented down, is get it all pulled together into a succinct plan, so that then you can say, right, yeah, I might still wake up and think about stuff, but I'm not going to have my head spinning because I know I've pulled all this together. I've put the thought in, I've got a plan, and I'm ready to go ahead and get it put into place. You may not need to do all this work at the same time. In some cases, it might pull together pretty easily. In other cases, it might need a bit of work. So as an example, you may not have sufficient cash flow now, so you don't need to apply, or sorry, you may have sufficient cash flow now, so you don't need to apply for finance right now. Likewise, you don't have a team, so you may not need an organisation chart. So those various aspects that I said in terms of pulling together a cohesive plan, you may not need all of those things at this point, just simply because your business doesn't have those things. In any case, what is important is that you establish what is right for you. What combinations of these do you need, and who will do them? Who's going to bring it all together? Okay, I jumped a little far ahead earlier, so here is the slide where we talk about next steps, and essentially we're talking here about the results mindset. So really it's time for you to consider your next steps. This model I like because I think it's useful in helping you to be able to follow, or to be able to follow, to ensure you get the results you want and that you need. So what does this model mean? Well, first of all, we start with the D, which is decisions. You have literally thousands of ideas in your head about what options you have in all aspects of your business. I know I do. But by documenting these ideas in a plan, you're making positive decisions about what you will and what you won't do. Remember that what you can say yes to is defined by what you can say no to. And sometimes the plan is more important about getting a clear focus on a few things you need to do that will make the most impact. So your decision right now could simply be to commit to making a plan. That could be the key decision. The next in our equation is A, or it's action, and the plan will include the actions you need to take to adapt your business. Detailed step-by-step actions that minimize risks and maximize opportunities. Likewise, the action you commit to right now could be to do your business recovery plan yourself and have us review it as an example, or maybe have us involved through the process. In any case, it's time for action to bring those documented decisions into an action plan. The next day is accountability. In order to get results, as I said earlier, it's usually not enough to make decisions and agree on actions. And if you're anything like me, you need someone to hold you to account to completing those actions. So go back to your school days. For some, it might not be that long ago. For others like me, it's like a lifetime ago. But think back to your school days. If you didn't have a teacher holding you to account for doing your homework, would you have done it? Or think about if you have a personal trainer. If you didn't commit to the sessions with your trainer, would you go as often? So we're here to help you make sure that you not only complete the plan, but you get the results that you want. So it's making sure you've got that accountability component. My aim is to help you take what you've learned today and implement some positive change in your business. And put simply, doing nothing is not an option. Doing what you have always done is unlikely to give you the same results that you've had in the past. And I think that's a really important thing just to pause on and reflect on. Doing what you have done doing what you have always done in the past is unlikely to give you the same results that you've had in the past. Remember to focus on what you can do as opposed to worrying about what is out of your control. I think that is so important. And there is so much that is thrown to us on a daily basis of all of the doom and gloom and all the dream takers. There's plenty of those. But they're often giving us the fear of the things that we can't change. And we end up focusing on those rather than focusing on the things that we have control over. Remember the Orbed model, which talks about that. Stay above the line. Have that above the line thinking. So how can we help? Our recommended strategy is to complete a business recovery plan. Now, we've been doing a number of these over a number of months. And we've been receiving great feedback on how effective the process is. Now, we've been doing business recovery plans pre-COVID. So where businesses get into trouble, whether it be the loss of a key customer, whether it be a key supplier falling over, whether it be key team members leaving, whatever it may be, there's businesses that may be rocked because of those events. Now, we haven't needed just COVID for that to happen. So as I said, we've been doing them for quite some time. COVID has certainly brought it to the forefront, and why I've said it's important to give some thought to business recovery planning. So essentially, if you haven't done a business recovery plan yet, now's the time to do it. And it will form a great foundation from which to build your cash flow improvement strategy. It helps with loan applications. It helps with making sure you've got clarity around what you're doing. It helps to provide comfort and clarity to your team as well. Have them involved in the process so that they understand what's going on. They don't need to know all of the intimate details, but it's so important to include them so that you're all pulling together in the same way. You're rowing the boat in unison, if you like. So there's lots of options that you have around this, but we've essentially pulled 4 together. And one option that you have in terms of getting a business recovery plan put together is to meet with us online so that we can do this together, either as a single session for up to 4 hours. It could be broken up over 2 or maybe 4 sessions of a couple of hours or a single hour each. But in any case, regardless of the makeup of the sessions, the purpose is that we'll send you in-depth pre-work, and I gave you a sample of what some of those look like earlier, to complete so that you have time to consider the impact COVID has had on each department of your business. And we'll use your completed pre-work as a guide through the plan and set goals for each department or each aspect of your business. And essentially that helps ensure you have a detailed plan and a well thought out plan so that it gives your business the best chance of recovery. Second option is that we can meet online for the business recovery planning session, and we'll work through helping you prepare, say, an updated cash flow forecast, updated finance application. Third option is that we can do a complimentary business review or a business recovery review. We'll send you a business recovery action list to complete, which is really a condensed version of the plan. And this option suits those who may have a small business that doesn't require a comprehensive business recovery plan. Once you've completed the action plan, we'll schedule a 15-minute call to help review your plan and look at some next steps. Whilst that is okay, the risk that I see is that if everything else is, with everything else that's going on right now, you may not get around to actually doing the work. So the accountability piece could be missing from that equation that I had on the previous slide. And if above all of the other things, if you're just simply not sure the best way forward, or if you want to talk about is how we could work together, if you're not a client, you're on the line today, and you would like to know how could we work together potentially, well then let's schedule a complimentary meeting to discuss your goals, your current problems and challenges, and then we can agree on the best way to work forward or to move forward. If you're going to need to obtain business funding, this is super important. We believe that it's vital that you prepare a cash flow forecast. I think cash flow forecasts at any time are essential because they form part of your overall plan. However, if you're looking for funding right now, it is super critical. Bottom line is that loans need to be repaid. That hasn't changed with COVID. That's always been the case. So your business needs to generate enough profit to then convert into cash to make the repayments. We know that it may be difficult to commit to spending some money right now. So some of the making a commitment to engage our services at the moment could be a stretch, and I recognise that. And part of the planning process will include an assessment of how you may be able to improve your profitability and cash flow so that there'll be a greater return on investment from this process over time. So for the short term, yes, we've got different payment options available. So don't let cost be a barrier. Please don't see the investment to make in the service being the downfall and say, oh, look, I can't do that right now. Look, get in touch and we'll work together and come to an arrangement so that it can be managed. In any instance, I always look at these things as either from two perspectives. Is it seen as being a cost or is it seen as being an investment? And oftentimes when I see people take the view that it's an investment, that's when the money that they spend is returned multiple times over through improvement strategies that can be implemented in their business. And again, I know that the benefits, and my team know that the benefits that you'll get from these services will be far greater than the fee, because it's essentially working as quickly as possible, ensuring that we are working to help build a stronger and more resilient business for you. Now I've got one question, and I think I answered that during the earlier part of the session, which is, who should I have as an accountability partner? As I said, a spouse is not the best, even if the spouse is part of the business, because you still need to, well, apart from having to work out where lines are drawn between business life and private life, business partners aren't necessarily the best to keep you to account. I know that. I had a business partner once, and the worst possible example of having as a accountability partner. You do need to have someone independent, someone who can challenge your thinking. When you have a business partner, they're too close. They're like you. They're too close to the business. The ability to have a measured conversation can possibly be strained because of the emotional attachment to the business, whereas someone who is independent doesn't have that same emotional attachment. And that's not to say that person is going to be cold and heartless. It's absolutely not saying that, but there's more opportunity to have a reasoned and thought out discussion and to be able to challenge thinking in a respectful way, rather than having someone who has closer emotional ties, whether that be a business partner or a spouse or both. I don't have any further questions. However, you're more than welcome to reach out separately contact me directly, phone me, email me, whatever, with any questions. If you want to have a chat, give me a call, schedule a time, we can explore further. So as a parting thought before we go, I'd like to share this quote with you. And essentially what I'm saying, or what we're saying here, Will Rogers in fact is saying here, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And that is pretty appropriate with what we've talked about today. The events that have unfolded so far this year have shown that to do nothing is just not an option. So yes, even if you are on the right track and you think, oh, I'll put my feet up for a while, no, it's not going to happen, because your competitors will catch you and they will go past you. Or even worse, your business fails to adapt and everyone else does. And then you're not on the right track anymore. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for those that have been on a few of these sessions now. We'll continue to run them each month, and we'll look to continue support you as our clients in as many ways as we possibly can. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.